maybe about a year ago, it suddenly hit me that I wasn't doing anything, that I was just dreaming. And it was something that made me say to myself, I don't know how this is going to happen. I want it, but I don't know how.
Where does this patience come from?
I wasn't waiting, and I didn't have the feeling that I was waiting the whole time. That was also one of the really big miracles, because the moment I knew what the situation was, and I knew that biologically this situation ends this way, this isn't made up, it's not a product of imagination, this is the truth, and it happens every time. The bigger the step you dare to take, the bigger the ripple you create in your surroundings. I knew that the time had come for this to happen. And it's a bit like turning over cards. Let me show you here, here, here.
Where does that confidence come from?
Okay, but what exactly do you do when you're decisive? Because I need the context. I want to be decisive. In general, it doesn't work. I want to be healthy, but in general, it doesn't work. Absolutely everything I've imagined right now is exactly as I imagined it, but a lot of time has passed.
Hello and welcome back to Reality Explorers. Today our special guest is our friend Teddy Dimitrova from Clubs. Things are spreading a lot now and a lot of magic is happening, and we're very happy that we can once again have a conversation on a very interesting topic, which this time will be told from Teddy's point of view. I asked her, as our conversations developed, to start including even more personal experiences, transformations, and sharing of what is happening. Since we know that right now big changes are happening on our planet, in the way we think, in what we experience as beings here. And that's why she wanted to share an interesting experience, which is yet another proof of what she calls practical magic, and the creation of those things we strive for, that we wish for, and that we long for. I want to say, welcome Teddy Dimitrova, thank you for being with us again.
It's a pleasure for me.
It's shocking, what happened?
What happened? Okay, now since we're talking practically, I really love to share practical things and to be very, very honest. Because what I'm going through right now, what you're going through, everyone goes through it. It's just that each person experiences it in their own way. There was a kind of magic that was very difficult for me and very significant. Because you know that I talk about these things. The moment it dawned on me that actually, we don't live in a linear world. And I realized that there's no point in doing things only with our hands and feet. I'm trying to do things differently, to create them in advance. And that was a kind of magic that was really big for me. And it was something I told myself, I don't know how it's going to happen. I want it, but I don't know how. And it was a really tricky kind of magic. Usually we advise people to be very specific. I had decided that I wanted us to move, to live in a place that's outside civilization, outside a city, outside a village. Right now we live in a very small settlement in Yorkshire, but we wanted it to be somewhere with real open space. We wanted to have that kind of lifestyle, but besides that, we also wanted it to be an old stone house. And in my family, for maybe about 7 years now, we've really liked Scotland as a place. We currently live on the island, but every time we've set foot there, the way you feel in Scotland is just completely different. Here we have an old stone house outside of town, and we'd love to have the same in Scotland if possible. I had this vision, and it's really important to me right now. That's just my idea. And to some people it might seem like these are little things, but to me it wasn't a small thing. I wanted to have a big fireplace because I imagined, how in the evenings we would gather around the fireplace and light the fire. A real fire is something incredible, and somehow now we already have these 3 things plus the fireplace. But every time I imagined it, I also pictured, just like the stone house, next to it a barn, some kind of farm building where one day we could, for example, have gatherings, use it for something, and around it there would be land. And since I'm not modest, I wanted to be by the sea, but maybe I also wanted it to be by a river, and we wanted there to be maybe a little forest too. Do you understand how much it starts to add up? Does such a place even exist?
Yes, yes, yes.
And because of that, I started thinking about it 4 years ago, around the year 2000. And I told myself, this thing has to happen, it will happen, somehow it will happen, I'm waiting for the miracle to happen. And eventually, when it didn't happen the first year, it didn't happen the second year, it didn't happen the third year, now it's the 25th year. I'm telling you about something that happened just now in December. We signed the contract and acquired the property in December 2024. Subscribe.
Miracles are states of being.
You realize that the moment this doesn't happen, the first year, the second year, the third year. Meanwhile, I think it was about 2 years ago when the program to become a great magician came out. I know these things and I do them, but I do them on a different scale. Then the Quantum Leap program came out, which was the continuation of the magician, as we call it. That was the continuation. And it practically solved problems that I had noticed. Here is the program, here is the information, and what do you do with it? Well, you do nothing. So you need a structure to know what to do every day, all day long. Maybe about a year ago, it suddenly hit me that I wasn't doing anything, that I was just dreaming.
Wait a minute now. This is very important for a lot of people. But before that, I want to ask another question. Where does this patience come from? To be so patient for so long and only now? To let it happen, to wait for it, to work for it, and to deserve your miracle?
I haven't been waiting and I haven't felt like I've been waiting all this time. That's one thing. Second, I have a mindset that what I want will happen. It has to happen. I will make it happen. I don't have a mindset that tells me to give up, which is very convenient because I didn't start with this magic. This magic was significant for me because I had kind of said, if I don't do this, how can I explain to someone else how to do something, right? And that was very important to me. And while I was simultaneously doing some older things or things more acceptable for my current program, this thing was still going on, right? And that's why I always tell anyone who starts creating something, start with the oldest things, start with someone bringing you, for example, a flower, bringing you chocolate, someone calling you on the phone. But after that, we start coming up with more things. Okay, but why, for example, not get this or that to achieve first, second, third? And even though I have had unique, really cool experiences over time, we've had, for example, as I've told many times, a baby that we literally brought back to life. That was also one of the really big miracles, because at the moment when I knew what the case was and I knew that biologically this case ends this way, you have to overcome yourself. That was big though when it comes to something that is about you. And it's something that I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't see how it could happen. I don't see the resources right now. Something has to happen and something will happen. By the way, this is a very big trap that I noticed in myself. Something will happen when you create. Something will happen. Whatever you create will happen someday. Not now, not now, not now. That's right. I was creating something for 2 years. It will happen. And absolutely looking back, I'm taking stock. I've been more precise about other things, but not about this one, and I didn't even realize it.
I thank you for standing up and saying it, and it does you honor. Because anyone who is even a little involved with this topic and is in this field is required to do so. Besides being labeled, there is an expectation that this person is following the textbook and that for him things work 100%. Yeah, but let's not forget that we are constantly changing and As you said, we have many countless programs that we don't even notice, and they only show up when you do some kind of meditation. What a step that is. So it's really cool that you say that, because in this way you show that by teaching it, working with some kind of systems, seeing the results in other people. Well, for yourself in some areas, you first discover how all of this works, which is unique. At least that's how I see it.
Yes, because you grow in what you want and you practically raise the bar, and that's endless. There isn't a person who has ascended so much that they're perfect in every moment and everything works out for them. As you say, I apply the first, second, third, fifth, because in order to apply it, you need to have some kind of aha moment. You need to even realize it. For me, it was a huge help for me that I worked with other people. And when you help someone else, you start telling yourself that. From the outside, I always see myself much better, that's clear. When I'm inside my autopilot program, I don't have an outside perspective to have an outside perspective. I have to get out of it. And to get out of it, I have to realize that I'm inside.
To get out.
And there are moments when we really don't know that we're inside. Oh, how do you do it? How do I do it every morning, every evening? There is visualization, please. And at one point, when I saw that people have a problem with this, they have the following problem. They have the apple problem.
The apple problem.
The apple problem. Yes, in the morning we eat an apple, in the evening we eat an apple, and in between we eat junk. That's the apple problem. In the morning, for example, we already know very well, we know how to use the alpha waves of the brain in the morning and evening. Right? We know how to get into visualization. We know how to do this thing. Let's say we do it perfectly.
All right.
You eating the apple in the morning, get into that image. I, for example, get into the image of, oh, I have it. If you only knew what visualizations I've had, I just touch it. Right now, we're already starting the renovation there. I'm fixing it. Absolutely everything I've imagined is now just as I imagined it, but a lot of time has passed. And in the meantime, between my amazing morning visualization and, for example, my amazing evening visualization, in the cases when I overslept it or missed it, because that happens too. We are not perfect and we have to go back. As Joe Dispenza says, it's not about never stopping. The point is, if you happen to stop, to start again.
To start again.
Because it's human and you can drift off even without noticing it. But in between, I'm the person who will have, but doesn't have, will have. But someday, well, apple, a mess in the middle. And in the end, you get what is currently dominating you as energy. Your energy dominates throughout the whole day because it's there most of the time and because it's stronger. And the moment I noticed problems in other people and wished to solve them and created a rhythm, we created a daily rhythm. Every day you have to do 5 things, which on one hand you create, but they also take up the time that is usually your day, bakults. And during that time, you will do the first, second, third, and fifth things, and you will return to the image that you need. At some point, we had gone through the program with many people, and I slapped my forehead and said to myself, but I'm not doing it. This is an attitude. I always make the programs together with the people I'm making them with, but I just hadn't thought to include this idea and this desire in what I'm doing. And from the moment I started, I covered the period between the 2 apples. That was the moment when a lot of things happened, and it was a huge realization, very powerful. Houman.
And you say that this thing has only been around for about 2 years. You said that you only noticed it before then?
Yes, and in the past year I can say that I have been creating this thing. So it took me about a year, maybe even a little less, from the beginning of last year until December. Considering that we found the place, I think it was in October, and from then on we started the purchase process. And that was the period it took me to be able to make this big step, which for me at the time felt, I think, really big.
Why was this so important to you? Why was it such a big challenge? Was it something personal, or did you have barriers you hadn't recognized?
For me, it was very simple. I just couldn't see how we could do it because financially, what we had in mind didn't match the numbers I was seeing at the time. And we didn't want to buy a place with a loan. And that was the framework of the story. It's one thing to use a loan, but actually going and buying such a place is something else. And when you look at your bank account and see that you don't have enough, these are very expensive properties and you just can't see how it's going to happen. And when you set out to create something like this, your mind immediately, bounces around and starts looking for solutions because that's the job of the logical mind. It's great that we have this, but then it starts to take inventory. Oh, I have this here, I have that there, I can do first, second, third. And literally in the process, when you start staying in the role throughout the whole day, you start to see other things. And there wasn't a flash like, oh, suddenly everything fell into place for me. There were a lot of actions. You and I have talked about action in a previous show, and I told you, yes, theoretically, absolutely. I'm convinced that the train could stop in front of my window, but I need to have the program that this is possible. Otherwise, I won't allow it. I won't enter that reality. And something else that might help people as an idea is people get into the role and do things that are done by that role.
Yes.
The whole time, I knew that now was the time for this thing to happen. And it was a bit like turning over cards to see if it's here, if it's here, if it's here. Even when we went to see the place that we eventually took, we didn't have the feeling that this was it, but we wanted to move forward. I was convinced that if we kept moving in some direction, eventually, without even wanting to, you would turn over the card.
If you would like to support everything we do on our channels, you can do so through PayPal, Patreon, or by becoming a member of the channel. We bow and thank you for giving us the reason to keep creating consciously, to change, to grow, to improve, and to learn from each one of you. What gives you that confidence?
The confidence comes from competence. They had a very interesting conversation with Adi and Milan Sanovi, and they said practically the same thing. They said, the moment you know a lot about a certain topic, that gives you competence, it gives you confidence. They said it in a very serious context, the context of a deadly illness. Can you imagine right now I just want a property, but if I were terminally ill, then I would need even more focus. And focus and faith come from the fact that, for example, I've read a bunch of books, I know what the biology of change is, I know what the quantum physics of change is, and I keep learning about these topics. For example, right now I'm reading a book that honestly is above my current level. With more biology, with more physics, more mathematics than I currently master, but I keep going, because when you understand the science behind something, you understand where the thought comes from. Sometimes you might get disappointed, that happens, but with the other thing, it seems to improve as time goes on. And I'm glad we're having this conversation now, because in a few months, I'll remember it differently. I'll tell you, it was super easy. I don't even know why I tried so hard, but right now, I still remember that there were moments when you tell yourself, what kind of magician are you? You're not good for anything.
Wait a second, hold on please. Your thought. How do you observe all this? Not in the specifics of your daily life, but when a certain period of time passes. Do you have a set program and system that you use to stop and say, now I'm observing and analyzing? Or does it come to you more intuitively based on your specific decisions?
If I understood your question correctly, are you asking if I have a time when I stop to see what I've done? Well, that time is every day, all day long. At some point, really, this makes sense because we let ourselves go, we slip, and we take advantage. And this slipping back, even with other people, I could tell you a story, this slipping back, we just don't notice it. The moment I started making a quantum leap, together with other people in our club, in the AH club, I have here, I'll show you, it's on my table. This is my journal. This journal is already filled out. See, this much, the more worn part is already written in. That means that every day I have to check where I am. I constantly take my temperature, so to speak, to see who I am at the moment. And accordingly, I have various little tricks that when I realize who I am, I put them into action. But at first it happens intentionally, then it becomes a habit. But initially it's done on purpose, and it's very interesting. Even in the first days when I started doing this thing in this way, on this topic, I was amazed by the number of counter thoughts that went through my mind, and that as a conscious person, I hadn't noticed before. Why? Because my focus wasn't there.
Yes, thank you for that answer. Here I am with my notebook number, let's say 457 for example, because the notebooks will never be enough. I still have my worry that when I like a notebook, I fill it up myself. And I tell myself, hey, don't write so much, it'll run out too quickly.
No, I don't have anything like that.
Again, I like it, but yes, that's how it is. Sometimes the brain really plays big jokes on us.
And the other thing is, it's interesting that sometimes you start to stall, you know what you have to do, and you learn how to lull yourself to sleep. The other day at a club meeting,
Give an example, yes.
a girl shared, she said, these days people ask me, what are you working on right now? What are you creating? And she said, just get to it. She is currently in her 7th month of a quantum leap, which means 7 months of non-stop control over her thoughts. However, this means, she says, that lately I've learned to pretend that I'm in control. And she says, for example, she writes in her diary, she writes some nice things inside. However, what I actually need are my sisters, and I started considering very small things as accomplishments. She doesn't want to. For example, I want to create myself as a person who is consistent. I am already consistent, but you want to be consistent in the context of something, right? And she has decided, you know, that, oh, now she's going to write it down. I was consistent because today I wrote something in my journal, 1 sentence, and that's it again. To be able to catch yourself when you're making excuses, and for us not to make excuses at all. And it's very creative. And that's also very good.
Very good, really, this one. What you're encouraging the viewers to do and challenging them is to truly become their own person. Sherlock Holmes on many levels, constantly 24/7, because otherwise we lose the thread. And you know, it sounds very literal and logical, but that's how it is, and that's why I'm glad you're mentioning it, you're confirming it in this show, so that people can see, first of all, how should we put it? We're not any different. Well, the people who are supposedly on the other side, who deal with and present this kind of information and material, they also go through the same thing. It's just that the focus and thoughts are different. And that's why, really, in the past year, I've learned a lot, and I'm striving, at least I'm trying to do that, to minimize comparisons as much as possible. Ranking, judging in any form, no matter who you're talking to or in what way. I focus on the idea that it's simply different, no matter how incomprehensible an event, form, or meeting may be to me. And really, when you look at it this way, when you turn off all those deep programs for a moment, then you start to see deeper and be able to notice a side of the person that, in principle, they wouldn't even reveal to you. Because people can sense it, we withdraw when someone is in that state. So thank you for saying that. I think it's very helpful. I
use all these situations as a hint, for example, when I really am. There are such situations, I'm upset with someone, they're in some situation, they're not looking for the key, or they have the key, but they're not using it. And these are very emotional encounters, and I use them as a hint for myself. okay, at the moment, in which aspect am I doing this? Maybe not in the main aspect I'm working on right now, but there's something else in which I am absolutely the same. And usually I find it, and then, working with other people helps you, especially when you have to create something so big. I really recommend to everyone, use your buddies for success. It's incredible again because you can't see yourself from the outside. In many cases, no matter how self-aware you are, I know this about myself. I consider myself self-aware, and I think that every self-aware person should feel that they have such a blind spot. But if you work with other people and you work periodically, for example, gather 3 friends and talk to each other, every Thursday we will meet and talk about what we are creating at the moment, what we have done, what we have thought, and so on, what fears we have had, how we have hesitated. You will be amazed by the processes that unfold before you. I will give one more example of a process during the creation of something new. This is absolutely typical, and here I'm talking about intelligent people, not people who, have some kind of deficit. These are intelligent people. It's absolutely typical. The moment you decide to do something, to create something, whether it's something like this, or, you can say, I want to be like this, or I want to have this, or I want to achieve this. It doesn't matter what it's about. At that very moment, your whole surrounding world starts to collapse. For example, just this morning we were discussing at a work meeting, I start to do something and suddenly I have problems in the family, health issues, serious ones. This is not made up. This is not a product of imagination. This is true, and it happens every time. The bigger the step you want to take, the bigger the mess you create in your surroundings. However, if you are among, for example, your 3 friends, awake people, they can nudge you and tell you, hey, it was the same for me. Exactly the same thing happened to me at that work meeting. When I started doing this or that happened, and I got around it with a certain action, or I went there and showed up, and it only worked out, for example, in the 6th month. This is very valuable because when we talk about quantum creation, there is this common idea that quantum creation should be very easy. Actually, there's nothing easy about controlling your mind. That's why it took me 4 years, so that after the 3rd year, it finally occurred to me to control my mind.
I would describe it as natural, but easy is a different matter. I think that I understand it, and I really think so. Everyone has their own individual time, needs, and ways to realize what they are creating or have created. But I dare say that by now it is natural, how long it takes us, how much effort we put into maintain this natural process, to turn it into something really like raising your right hand, that depends on us. And here I'm curious how you would explain in very briefly to someone who is not familiar what quantum creation means. Do you know why? I'm asking, tell me, because the more someone delves into a field, the more people appear who are just getting acquainted with it. And he is challenged or provoked to explain to them what he is working on. And usually my answer when you ask me, what do you do? What exactly do you do? Do you do? What exactly don't I do? I'm a jack of all trades. The idea is that really, at least in my own research over the past year, and that's why it's interesting to see if you share this point of view, I've really been challenged to go back more and more to the simplicity of things, to childlike logic and the simple process. And the foundation of all this, which grows like an endless tree of life.
Now I'll tell you my elevator pitch about quantum creation. I'll explain it in the latest way. Now you are currently projecting everything you see, that is, you are not a body in linear space, but a projector that is currently emitting matter. How do we know this? We know it from science, and we've known it for about 100 years. And if you're interested, you can dig deeper, but right now, there's no need for us to go into detail. Quantum creation is the process in which you realize that you've created all of this, and you start trying to create things intentionally.
Very well said.
And from there on, if you start to go deeper, how do we know this? Because there are people who say, Aitska, you're already overusing the word quantum. You don't understand anything about quantum science. I tell everyone this is accessible. I mean, yes, there are books and books and materials and materials. And at first you start with something simpler, then you can start with something a bit more complicated. I'm a typical example of that. In school, I was not good at physics. Don't even ask me about natural sciences. And that's still true today. I absorb exactly this type of literature because I want to know.
Yes, there is a spark for knowledge which is unique. All right. What do you think, how do you define it when you say, for example, I've done a big magic or a small one? From a quantum point of view, does it matter if it's big or small, or at some point does everything become one?
No. From a certain point, there is no small or big from a quantum point of view. However, from a human perspective, the small thing is what more easily fits into your perceptions and expectations at that moment. Big is what, at the moment, is a slightly bigger bite for you to believe, because everyone has something like that. And I dare say that as long as we are alive, we will have big bites. They will just change. At the moment, it was a big thing for me to create this, to imagine the logical way it would happen, but I had the resources to take my little sticks. But one day, for example, I might get to the point where I say I want to teleport, and then that will be my big thing. Are you currently teleporting yourself mentally? And if so, do you want to teleport yourself physically as well? And really, I want, just as I'm sitting right now in the office in Yorkshire, I want to go to Scotland, snap. That's how it's usually done. That's how it should be done. But we haven't gotten there yet. So now we get in the car and travel one day. That will be my big goal. But right now it's something else.
Yes. Well, that's it. Yes, exactly. In the end, that's it. This leads to the exploration of infinity because expansion is endless. The universe is constantly expanding, so we are part of all this, and it's normal for us to move forward. Whatever form it takes, it's not up, it's not forward, but it's in all directions, somewhere.
Somewhere.
The definitions of law are very interesting.
The development of awareness, but that's already very abstract. And a person needs today, for example, I want, for example, someone to be healthy. I don't want to be the victim anymore. I want to have, I don't know, new shoes or whatever, or to move to a new apartment, to change jobs. These are the things that most people care about today. And by the way, when someone comes and tells me, Tegi, I want to work on my determination, for example.
Yes.
And I always ask, okay, but what do you want to do when you are determined? Because I need the context. I want to be determined. Generally, it doesn't work. I want to be healthy. Generally, it doesn't work. And if, I don't know if I have time, I can tell you a story about health.
Yes, tell it.
The moment someone tells me, I want to be healthy, I ask them, okay, and when you're healthy, what will you do? Well, I'll be happy. No, that's not enough. Tell me, what do you want to build in this life? Because in order to affirm some image of yourself, whether it's decisive, healthy, or whatever, you need to know what you're going to do with it afterwards. And when we start working, we don't work on being decisive or healthy. We work toward the ultimate goal for which you already need to step into the image of being decisive and healthy. That's the truth, because, for example, right now we have a case in our club with a lady. Actually, there are two, but one of them currently has a very difficult diagnosis. And the path to healing is the path to finding out what I actually want to do, why I want to live. And once you understand why you want to live, you tell yourself, okay, this thing I want to do next, I start doing it. Now and at every moment, this is constant. a return to the old self. At every moment, you fall into a situation where, for example, you are a victim again, or you are neglected again, or you are lazy again. Even so, because that's also something, to be too lazy to live, and that exists too. You may fall into such situations, but you pull yourself out of there, but you do it on the way to your main goal. And as long as you don't have a main goal, you won't become decisive, you won't become strong, and you won't create. It's like, I want to have this girl, and that's fine, but then what? I know what next. And then you don't open up to anyone else after that.
I think there's no need to ask people any specific other questions. With that last thing you said, I think you've done enough. So that all of us can reflect once again for another day, for another hour, on what we want, what we desire, and why we do it. And whether what we're doing right now couldn't be turned around 180 degrees, and whether we can't even use this conversation as a springboard or as a reference point to turn around and say, wait, I don't want to do this anymore. All this time I've wanted to head west and to head west. Teddy, thank you very much for your participation and for this topic and for the story we shared and the conversation we had today. Anything you'd like to say in conclusion?
Control your mind. That's it. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Hello, thank you so much for watching another episode of. If you want to watch more like this in the future, leave a thumbs up. We won't be mad at you. Share it on the channel, because the more the better. Thank you for walking together with us toward a true awakening, an awakening of each one of us from the illusion that surrounds us. We thank each one of you for your support, for your perseverance, for your patience, for your understanding, for your honesty, for the change. See you soon.